Second round, you get another guy. Third round, you get a deeper wide receiver prospect that you're not going what?
I was going to say, you're not going to go 3 in a row. I think that's absurd.
I would.
Ryan, the Buffalo Bills have done what we kind of expected they would do. They have traded Stefon Diggs to the Houston Texans. We're back from vacation. We finally get to talk about it. That Bills poster is over your right shoulder. I will give it to you first. I have a lot of thoughts. I know you do. Where do you stand on this? What does this mean for Buffalo?
Okay, so the fact that Diggs is gone is good, okay? Because it started becoming toxic at Buffalo. There were rumors that Allen blew up on Diggs, a time or two. There were rumors that Diggs just wasn't happy.
Well, we know that.
Right. You have these generational duos that just do so well together. And, I've heard Cowherd compared, Brady and Edelman, right? You had all these quarterback wide receiver duos that just worked. Josh Allen and Diggs never did that. They never saw on the same page ever. They may have one good throw here and there, but ultimately throughout Diggs' entire time there, one of them was always frustrated with the other. We saw it on national television. They would get into, almost physical arguments on the sideline, right? That's not good for the team. And when it comes down to it, you build a team around that star quarterback because they're a dime. Wide receivers are a dime a dozen. Quarterbacks are not. They're going to hope and pray for the draft. Getting rid of Diggs was a very, very good move on the Bills' part to get that out of the locker room. However, it was a terrible trade.
I agree with you on a lot of it. I'm conflicted on this. So first off, you said they were never a great duo. They were, numbers-wise. They just never got the trophies they wanted. Buffalo just looked up Stefon Diggs' numbers in Buffalo. 2020, 1,500 yards, 8 touchdowns. 21, 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns. 1,400 yards, 11 touchdowns. 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns. So had the numbers, had the success, even made the playoff runs, but just felt like they could never get over the hump. Stefon Diggs has a history of being a diva. I don't like my wide receiver coming over and throwing his arms up in front of the quarterback in the middle of a playoff game. This was such an indication that Buffalo was done with him and they did not care what happened. They wanted to get him out of the building. We were all surprised he stayed there last season, right? Before last season, the whole training camp thing, and he wasn't there, and Sean McDermott had a press conference, and he was like, I'm very concerned. And then the next day, he was like, what are y'all talking about? I'm not even worried about it. It's like, buddy, you told us you were concerned. This has been an issue brewing for a while. This is what Stefon Diggs, he acts like a child. I'm sorry. A grown man doing this and tweeting his feelings, and he's acting like a 7th grader, okay? That's just what he's doing. Maybe his reasons are justified, maybe they're not. It's clear Buffalo just was done with him. They wanted to move on from him. He got basically, no yards or targets at the end of last year. He dropped that ball in the playoff game against the Chiefs. The trade is surprising. They're only getting a 2nd-round pick, and it's next year's 2nd-round pick. I don't love that. I would have really liked to get a pick this year, and to give up Diggs the 6th and the 5th, it seems like a lot when you're eating most of the contract. I don't like Brandon Beane, but obviously this is what the market had dictated, right? He's not going to just go, bend over a barrel for Houston. So this is probably fair as far as the way the market viewed him, because I'm sure the other NFL teams looked at Stefon Diggs and said, he's kind of a headache. You know what I mean? Is he even worth it? At his age, is it worth trading for him and bringing him in? That had to be a consideration for some of these teams, right?
You would think. But honestly, where he landed at the Texans is where he's probably going to finish his career and where he's probably going to have a pretty successful run. You got a tough wide receiver room there, and I think that's one of Diggs' problems, and this is maybe a little bit out of the box thinking, but you look at the wide receiver core for the Texans versus the Bills, whose is better?
Oh, the Texans, no doubt.
By miles.
Yeah.
Miles and miles and miles. Kilometers even, for our UK brothers. But when you look at Stefon Diggs at the Bills, he was the guy. Whether or not you liked it or not, he was the best talent on the team. Now, the numbers said otherwise, right? That they had successful runs together, Allen and Diggs, but just the chemistry was never there. But Diggs going into a quarter or a wide receiver locker room that has such star talent and young talent, Hopefully he can mentor. I don't see that happening because I don't think Diggs is that type of guy. He's out for himself and he still wants to play like he's 25 and he's not. But I think being around such star talent with Nico Collins and Tank Dell and people like that, like he's going to have to be okay with not being the number one guy, or he can go home.
Well, he's not going to be okay with it. I'll go ahead and tell. I think he will.
Well, then he can go home.
Maybe.
That's the beauty of the 1 year deal.
Right, exactly.
Who cares what happens? Like, hey, he's either going to add to our team or he's going to be a menace like he has been on every other team he's been on, and we'll kick him out after a year.
Yeah, and from the Texans' perspective, it only cost us a second-round pick that technically wasn't ours anyway. We had traded to get it.
It was spare change.
What you think Buffalo should do, what this means for them going forward, kind of expand on your thoughts there.
Yeah, I want to talk about where they go in the wide receiver market a little bit, okay? Because they lost Gabe Davis, which I'm not upset about either.
No.
And they lost Stefon Diggs, also not upset about. They added Curtis Samuel. I'm happy about that because I think that's an actual really good wide receiver number 2. What they have to do here is burn everything down to get as many wide receivers as they possibly can. I was listening to a podcast earlier, and I agree wholeheartedly. I actually thought about this before I even heard it. The Bills have the 28th overall pick, then they have the second round number 60, and then they have 128, 133 in the 4th round. I think for their first 3 picks, they have to go back-to-back wide receivers. And you ask me, well, but they need other positions. Yes, they do. However, what they need more in the AFC is a high-powered offense. So I've heard some people say, well, they need a defensive lineman. Yes, they do. The AFC, if you don't have an offense, you don't have a team. That's all there is to it. So until you can get wide receiver pieces on the field, you're up the creek without a paddle. I don't care how good your defense is. It's not going to be able to overcome and match up the points. So where do they go? At pick 28, they're probably going to land somewhere around Adonai Mitchell. The worst thing that the Bills could do is trade up for a wide receiver right now. Because when you look at people like Rashee Rice and guys that have come out of a later round draft pick and been really successful guys, it's not worth trading up to get somebody that's probably going to pan out on the same level as an Adonai Mitchell that would fall into 28.
And buddy, this is a really deep wide receiver draft. One of my favorite wide receivers in the draft is Ricky Pearsall out of Florida. He's going to go in the 2nd round. So, like, you can get good receivers in the 2nd and 3rd round this draft. I think there's a very good chance A.D. Mitchell falls to them. He's a great receiver. If I was the Buffalo Bills, that's who I would be targeting. I'm with you. I would not trade up. We need the picks. Like, honestly, Ryan, I could make an argument you trade down. You trade down into middle of the 2nd, still get a good receiver, and add another pick later in the draft to get more pieces. That's not crazy to me.
It's not crazy, but I still think you take Adonai Mitchell, right, and a guy that is supposed to be pretty good, right?
He's
Second
good.
round, you get another guy. 3rd round, you get a deeper wide receiver prospect that you're not going what?
I was going to say you're not going to go 3 in a row. I think that's absurd.
I would.
Okay, so this is where
I 100% would. But this is why, though, because how many wide receivers do we see come out that actually make it and do really well as a late round draft pick? It's not often. It does happen, like Rashee Rice.
I feel like it's happening more lately, though, the past couple of years.
So you take 3 guys. You only have Curtis Samuel. That is your only wide receiver.
You have.
I know
I like
there's other
Shakir.
people there.
I like Shakir a lot.
Okay.
So let me just interject. This is why I'm calling timeout on the Bills' panic mode in wide receiver. Yes, we need wide receiver. That 1st round draft pick is going to be wide receiver. 100. Go ahead and lock it in. However, I'm okay having Curtis Samuel and Shakir. Shakir was coming on decent at the end of last year. I think having him as like one of your primary slot guys, moving him around, same with Samuel, you draft a guy in the 1st round, then let's go defense, let's go offensive line, grab another receiver maybe in the 4th to plug in there. But if you got A.D. Mitchell, Shakir, and Curtis Samuel, as well as Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox, I think that's a good receiving core.
I still like my chances of taking 3 wide receivers and hoping that 2 pan out.
But you're going to be so depleted in they need interior defensive line. They need an edge rusher. They need secondary help. You cannot just hammer one position and say, help us, Josh Allen, because you can address that position and still get the others. There's not as many good edge rushers. There's a decent amount of secondary players in the draft, but I think you could get 2 receivers, an edge rusher, offensive lineman.
So, but you got to think, okay, you at least take your first 2 wide receivers. Okay,
I mean, I don't agree.
So you take first 2. Well, then in the 4th round, you got pick 128, 133. Well, you pick up a defensive piece there, and then the other one you could burn on a wide receiver too, because then in the next round you've got 3 picks in the 5th round.
Yeah, but the 5th round is what we're really throwing darts, hoping we get starters at that point.
Well, yeah, but I mean, look at the Chiefs. They did it. They did it the 7th round.
Yep, but I mean, okay, I hate to break it to you, Brett Veach is a better GM than Brandon Beane.
You think? He's the best. He's the best in the game right now. But I'm just saying, to me, it's a dumpster fire with receivers right now. You are throwing everything you got. The only other option you have is to go pick somebody else up.
You can't afford it. Yeah.
You're gonna have to. You can't afford it, and you're gonna have to give up too much capital to get somebody.
I just don't. I'm not panicking. I'm not panicking as much as you, man. I really think Shakir, Samuel, and AD Mitchell would be good. Now you could get one later on, but I don't accept the premise of bypassing edge rusher, offensive line. Like they need Ryan. Do you remember a couple weeks ago when they got rid of every player on the team? This roster is depleted. This is a rebuild. It is 100% a rebuild with a franchise quarterback. You can't put your blinders on and focus on one position. I think that would be really detrimental to the offense.
You at least get your first 2 receivers taken care of. You get 2 good, talented people out of the 1st and 2nd round. I know it's a rebuild, and I know you need pieces elsewhere, but if you don't have somebody for Josh Allen to throw the ball to, what have we seen year after year? Josh Allen puts the game on his shoulders, and he gets that ghosty-eyed look. I mean, he can't do it. Like, he can't. He's not like Patrick Mahomes.
So you don't like Shakir as much as I do?
No, I do like Shakir, but I don't have enough confidence in him, because you could say the same thing if it was 2-3 years ago with Gabe Davis. It's like, well, yeah, he's shown some pretty good things.
That's a fair point.
Next season, and Gabe Davis falls flatline.
I will give you that.
That's just that we don't know. We don't know about any of these guys in the draft either.
You're saying backstop it. Yeah.
Yes, you have to, because if you get 3 and only 2 work or only 1 work, well, hey, you tried.